we'll do on-topic questions only. Thank you.
Sure. We apologize for the delay. Those that come up quite often to the office know that sometimes it just cannot be helped, and so we thank you for sticking around. We have very exciting news today, so we want to welcome the NYPD Commissioner Jessica S. We want to welcome the Special Investigation Unit of the State Police, Major James Brown. I would like to thank my office, Major Economic Crimes Bureau Chief Mary Lowenberg. Our lead ADA on this was Lisa Yang, the Executive Jerry Braid, the Queens District Attorney, detective investigators, and of course the NYPD detectives. So we're all here today to announce the indictment of 20 individuals in a sprawling auto theft ring centered here in Queens County. 14 of these individuals are charged with top count of enterprise corruption, which is a B felony. They face up to 25 years. The rest are variously charged with criminal possession of stolen property, grand larceny, conspiracy, and as you see from our table, at least 2 were charged with gun possession as well. The defendants are charged in 9 separate indictments for a total of 373 counts. As of this hour, 16 of the 20 of the defendants are in custody. 1 of the defendants is surrendering on Monday. 1 more is in Nassau County Jail, and 2 remain at large. The indictments are the result of Operation Hellcat, a 3-year-long investigation by our office, the NYPD, the state police, into an expansive auto theft enterprise. We allege that the defendants had a prolific car theft industry in the city of New York, and it sprawled across the United States. It is one of the biggest auto theft rings that we have seen in the last decade. The massive criminal ecosystem consists of 3 separate groups who all work together. 1 were the thieves who took the cars, the others were the brokers, and the third group of people were the black market dealers, all of whom relied on one another to steal the cars throughout New York, throughout Long Island, Westchester, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. And we allege that this enterprise could not exist or thrive without the specialized knowledge of each defendant in a coordinated effort. The group began stealing cars the simple way, by targeting cars that still had the keys or the key fobs inside the vehicle. Their theft patterns then evolved. They began acquiring blank key fobs, something you can do very easily online. They broke into cars with screwdrivers. They punched out the driver's door lock, and they smashed windows. After breaking into the car, they used handheld devices like this one, without showing you the brand, to connect the car's onboard diagnostic system, and then use that device to program a new key fob for the car. The thieves made sure to sweep the cars for Apple tags and removed all tracking devices, very advanced. Together, they stole 126 cars. You can see the breakdown over there. There is a breakdown of the areas, but the most are 52 cars in Queens, 25 in Brooklyn, 14 in Nassau, 10 from the Bronx, 10 from Westchester, and so on when you look at the board. The police dubbed this investigation Operation Hellcat because it began with a pattern of thefts of Dodge Hellcats, traditionally identified by their high horsepower and noise to attract attention. Most of the cars, 38, were Acuras, 24 Hondas, 23 BMWs, 20 Dodges, 3 Land Rovers, and several others. These thieves put in work by identifying specific cars that they later stole and relied upon each other's skills to steal. For instance, some of the defendants disabled the GPS and the tracking devices. Others knew how to break into specific models, and others programmed the key fobs. They were paid according to their role. After the stolen cars, the defendants would, quote, lay up the stolen vehicles on public streets So they would leave the cars on the streets to make sure that no one was looking for them, or that they didn't miss an AirTag or some identifying computer or other type tech that was in the car. And they would leave it on the street and see if anybody came to find it. They also would disguise the vehicles that they stole, placing fake or stolen licenses, covering the dashboard VIN, ripping off inspection stickers, using opaque license plate covers. So now after this group stole the cars, a second set of specialized defendants took over. Two of the defendants acted as brokers for the auto theft ring. They coordinated with the thieves to sell the cars on the black market, typically soon after the thefts, in exchange for a fee. These defendants used social media, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, to advertise the stolen vehicles. You will see on the board some of the pictures of the advertisements for the sale or the buying of these vehicles. They advertised the cars for $1,000 to $6,000, flipped the cars to the buyers without having to scratch off the VIN or modify the title. Finally, the third group of dealers bought these stolen vehicles and sold them to their own customers. So that was the third part of the enterprise. At least 3 defendants, after obtaining the stolen vehicles from other members of the enterprise, altered the original vehicle ID numbers. They altered the true VIN, so it's hard to track. And the black market dealers could get a higher price if the VINs were altered. 2 of those individuals are based in Tennessee. Some of the vehicles associated with the theft ring were ultimately transported there to be resold. Out of 126 cars allegedly stolen by this group, I want you all to know that 44 were purchased by undercover officers. And, you know, we always have, I'm sure that the Commissioner will talk about it, great pride in the undercover officers that go in and put themselves in danger every single day. I thank all of our law enforcement partners here today. I must also thank the National Insurance Crime Bureau and the New York Department of Motor Vehicles for providing so much of their expertise. Pursuant to the indictment secured by my office, members of the NYPD and state police began arresting the defendants yesterday morning at locations throughout New York and elsewhere. There are some of the most active car thieves that we have seen in New York, and they have wreaked havoc on unsuspecting car owners all around the state. And we all know that Queens happens to be a hotbed for stealing cars. People help themselves to our property. I've been a resident of Queens my entire life, and concerns involving auto theft have come up time and time and time again. Every resident deserves to feel a sense of safety with their cars, and this indictment serves as a warning to those who choose to lead this life of stealing vehicles. And I have a message to the buyers of these vehicles. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So if you see a car that you know has a book value of $40,000 and being sold for $1,000 to $6,000, you know that there are probably issues with that vehicle. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And the potential fallout from unknowingly purchasing and driving a stolen vehicle is simply not worth the risk. I now please welcome to the podium and really thank the NYPD for all of their great work, not only on this case, but throughout the city of New York, for putting their lives on the line every day to protect us, and for the work that their great detectives do. I give to you Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch.
Thank you, DA. Yesterday, NYPD detectives and our law enforcement partners executed search warrants at 9 locations across the city, resulting in the arrest of 16 individuals connected to a multi-state, multi-million-dollar auto theft operation. This takedown follows a 3-year investigation led by the NYPD's Auto Crime Unit and the New York State Police, which began in March of 2022. What started as a case against a motorcycle thief soon uncovered a full-fledged criminal enterprise responsible for stealing and trafficking thousands of vehicles annually worth tens of millions of dollars. At the heart of this operation was a career thief who recruited, trained, and led a steel crew that operated with precision, transitioning from motorcycles to cars. The crew began with simple driveway steals, opportunistically breaking into open vehicles. But as the operation evolved, so did their methods. They started breaking into cars parked on the street using electronic key programmers, devices that you can buy easily on sites like Amazon, to clone digital keys and drive off in under 90 seconds. The crew sold the stolen vehicles using encrypted messaging apps like Telegram, which has ignored multiple subpoenas, by the way, making it harder for authorities to track their activities. This wasn't a crew of one-off thieves. This was a sophisticated criminal enterprise with defined roles and a clear hierarchy. At the center was a 9-person steal crew, the ones physically breaking into the cars, reprogramming key fobs, and driving them away. They were connected to 2 brokers, middlemen, who took orders, some from out of state, including Tennessee, down to the make, the model, and even the color of the vehicle. Then there were the sellers, who altered VINs, forged paperwork, and resold the vehicles. Finally, the buyers, who would pay for the stolen vehicle and arrange for its transport. It's important to note, these were not high-end luxury cars. This crew targeted regular vehicles driven by everyday New Yorkers who relied on them to get to work, to take their kids to school, and just to live their lives. During the investigation, undercover officers recovered 46 of those stolen vehicles worth more than $1 million directly from members of this crew. They also recovered 4 illegal firearms, including 1 just days ago. In total, the 20 individuals indicted have a combined 178 prior arrests. These criminals did not fear getting arrested. In fact, they simply saw it as a cost of doing business. They knew the system, they knew the odds, and they knew they'd be back out on the streets ready to steal another car. They openly mocked the justice system because even if they got picked up for stealing 1 vehicle, they knew they'd still be way ahead of the game. But now, thanks to our great partner, District Attorney Melinda Katz and her team, the game is over. They lose. 16 arrests were made yesterday across the 5 boroughs and 1 in Tennessee by a federal task force working in close coordination with the NYPD. 2 of the defendants were already incarcerated, 1 in Rikers, 1 in Nassau County. This takedown sends a clear message. New York City will not be a haven for car thieves or anyone who seeks to profit by stealing from everyday New Yorkers. Property crimes, and especially auto thefts, are not victimless. I would like to thank the NYPD's Auto Crime Unit for their exceptional work on this investigation, especially our case detective, Brian DeMacy, as well as our partners in the New York State Police, the Queens District Attorney's Office, and the Tennessee Highway Patrol. We will continue to use every resource at our disposal to dismantle these criminal enterprises, hold offenders accountable, and protect our communities. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank also Chief Kenny, who is here with us today. I want to note just after the Commissioner spoke that 14 of these individuals, like I said, have been arrested for the enterprise, which makes it qualifying for bail. So it's much more of a hook there. And 2 of them also got caught with guns, which makes it qualifying as well. I now present to you, please, Major James Brown of the Special Investigation Unit of the New York State Police.
Good afternoon. I'm going to start by thanking both District Attorney Katz and Police Commissioner Tisch for their continued partnership and support. This investigation would not have been possible without the work of all those involved. This is a complex case that required a high level of cooperation between our agencies, sharing vital intelligence, coordinating resources, and taking advantage of the specialized expertise of our members. The suspects indicted today are in a very sophisticated, organized, and active auto theft ring. They went out multiple times each week, stealing vehicles and reselling vehicles. It took a substantial amount of work over 3 years by all involved to track these suspects and to build this case, including the use of technology and other specialized investigative techniques. One thing is abundantly clear about this case. The suspects had no regard for the people they victimized. Their only concern was stealing vehicles, getting away with it, and selling them to turn a profit. One message we want to make clear to those who victimize others: we will not tolerate this kind of activity anywhere in New York State. We will do everything in our power to dismantle your operation and hold you fully accountable for your actions. I want to close by commending the efforts of the New York State Police Auto Theft Unit, the NYPD Auto Crimes Unit, the Queens District Attorney's Office, and all those other local and state agencies who provided assistance. Thank you.
Right, on topic. Yep, on topic.
Tony?
Yeah, Commissioner Tisch mentioned there were 46 cars bought by undercovers, but you also indicated that the ring is suspected of doing thousands of auto thefts in previous iterations. How many of those 46 cars are on the way back to owners, if possible? What about the others?
I can do that. So there's 126 cars in all that were stolen. Like we said, many of them are bought by undercovers. It always depends on where they are in the system. So in other words, if the owners had been reimbursed by the insurance companies, the car would go back to the insurance company. If the car was not reimbursed to the insurance company, which I believe one of them is not reimbursed, we would return the vehicle to the individual. So whatever we can do to make everyone whole is what we try to do. And we pretty much have succeeded in doing that. Where they've, like I said, where they were paid, we give the car to the insurance company, and they, I guess, would sell them at auction or whatever they do.
Greg,
Kevin?
how were you tipped off? This was 3 years ago. Started with a symptom arrest.
It started with a narcotics arrest by Santiago, who was which we think was a mentor to a lot of these defendants. And then, as any good investigation, it goes from there. That led to another, and so on and so forth. And with the cooperation of the 3 law enforcement agencies and so many of the other agencies like DMV and the insurance companies, we found this ring. We worked together. We put up wires. We did everything that was necessary to have a complete investigation and catch as many of these people that are involved in the enterprise as possible. Kevin?
So you mentioned that the air tags and security devices in the people's cars were removed.
Yes.
Do we know how they found those? It's not like
So,
sitting on the seat.
no, but air tags are quite tiny, and they are used just for that purpose, right? To find your property, knapsack in your child's knapsack if they're very young, things of that nature. So the air tag could be anywhere. Now, just to be clear, from what we know, they searched the car and the vehicle for those air tags and for any other locating devices that there would be. But, technology has come so far, and it's so intricate that if they had an air tag that they missed or some sort of locating device, they actually knew enough to leave it on the street for a day or two, just in case they missed it. Very, very smart.
That initial arrest you talked about, was that for someone who was suspected of stealing a motorcycle? Is that what the police commissioner said?
I thought it was narcotics, but
There were 2.
there were 2. So there were 2 initial arrests, apparently, that led to the larger investigation. One was for narcotics and one was for motorcycle. But it is an example of how these types of sprawling investigations can get started with a simple arrest. If you pay attention, if you have investigators who are smart, like they did on this case with the NYPD and the state troopers, and that we continue to work together to make sure that we have all the information and are patient to get the enterprise.
Anybody else?
I just have one quick question about how the vehicles were identified. Like, how did they know that they wanted that Acura or that? I know initially it's Operation Hellcat because they were going after Hellcat. Did they target another brand or another model?
So they targeted a lot of the models which I talked about before, 38 Acuras, 24 Hondas, 23 BMWs, 12 Dodges, 3 Land Rovers, 3 Jeeps, 7 Mercedes, 2 motorcycles, and different automotive brands. They would know what sells, and at times they would look towards what the market was asking for. You have something to add to
Steal to
that? I
order.
see.
Yeah, basically they would steal to order. Like somebody would place an order for a car, and they would send scout teams out to look for that car. So a buyer would request, say, hey, I want a 2022 black Honda with brown leather seats. They would go out and hunt that car. The scout team would find that car and then relay the location back to the steal crew.
Was there any pattern? Did they go to like malls or did they go to people's houses? Or?
Out on the street.
How the car would be going back again to become a legal car?
No, it's stolen. You can't do that. Once a car is stolen, normally, and there are always exceptions, but normally the car would be reimbursed to the owner by the insurance company, and then once we have the vehicle, we give it back to the insurance company, and at that point, they would do what they need to do to resell that car, to auction it off, to make their money back from the crew. What was the question?
Any illegal. Any
Oh,
imports.
From our perspective, that is not part of our investigation. We prosecute for the crime that they've committed, and we follow the evidence.
One more from Greg. We happened to see the arrest, I think it was Villegas, yesterday. Was there a ringleader? It's called Ben Bills here. Is that kind of was there a point person on this or anything significant at that particular arrest yesterday?
This is almost exactly the quintessential enterprise corruption, or the enterprise charge that we have, right? It is every single person in this enterprise had his or her own expertise, own specialty, and was contributing to the coordination of all that was happening here. So there wasn't really one ringleader. There was Santiago, who sort of was a mentor to folks, allegedly, in our indictment. But in general, this is exactly what an enterprise is meant to prosecute for. All of whom cannot do this job without each other. And they relied on each other in order to make sure that they got away with it and to make sure that they made as much money as they possibly could for it.
Tony, final one.
Yeah, for Commissioner Tisch, you mentioned that a number of these defendants had prior arrests for stolen cars and stolen property. Those were non-bail eligible offenses as they were out on the street. What was their situation?
I don't
Before the
know that.
enterprise kicked in?
So we won't talk about their past arrests here or their convictions at the moment. So there's a certain point where crimes are qualifying. Grand larceny is not one of those crimes unless there are extenuating circumstances, unless they have open cases from previous crimes. But the point here is that when you have an enterprise and you rely on one another for the work of that enterprise and to make the money for that enterprise, and when one person leaves, another person comes in, and there is this rolling effort, we charge them with an enterprise, and that becomes a qualifying event. And so 14 of these defendants were charged with the enterprise. That made it qualifying. 2 of them had guns that were not charged with the enterprise, so those became qualifying. So out of the 20, 16 of them were bail eligible.